DIY with Chris, giving you the tools to do it yourself.
Hey everyone, it just dipped down into the single digits for this year. We're up in Fairbanks, Alaska right now, and it's only October. So today is actually Halloween right now, and temperatures are going to be getting much cooler. So we want to prevent any undue or unnecessary harm that can come to our vehicles, and so in order to do that, we're going to work on winterizing them. So some of the basic things that you want to do in order to make sure that your car is protected for very low temperatures, usually when you want to start plugging them in, and we'll go over that a little bit later, but when you want to start taking more precautions is when you start getting into about negative or under 20 degrees, single digits, and then into the negatives. And so this is just going to be some steps that we can take that's going to help your car last longer. So a winter here that gets really low in temperature can actually be about worth 3 years of wear and tear in a more moderate zone or climate where it doesn't get quite this cold. So we do have to take some of these precautions. So the first thing that we really want to do when you're coming out here and going through this winterization process is change your antifreeze. So most antifreeze depends on the type that you have. If you have the pre-diluted 50/50 antifreeze, usually you're good down to about negative 30 degrees. Up here in Alaska, we're used to seeing temperatures much lower than that. So we have to go out and get, especially for our particular vehicles, we're getting GM specific antifreeze, and it's going to be from the concentrate. We're going to mix that at a ratio of 70% antifreeze and 30% distilled water, and that is going to cover us all the way down to negative 84 degrees. So that's our first step, is working on the antifreeze coolant system. Next thing that you want to make sure that you take care of is your engine oil. Most cars are starting to go off of the 5 weight versus the 10 weight right now. It's a thinner oil, and it just helps it flow a little bit better when it's cooler. So if you're in a hotter climate, then sometimes you'll be running that 10 weight instead, so you'll want to switch that out when you get here, or when it starts actually dropping down to a cooler weather. If you don't know what it is, it's always going to be safer for you to just go ahead and do an oil change anyway, and make sure you have 5 weight in there. And that's what's recommended on the oil cap, the oil fill cap. On our engine, it says 5 weight on there anyway. So it does give you a kind of heads up on there. You can check your user's manual for any other information in regards to that. Next thing that we want to do for these low of temperatures is also do either a battery pad or a battery blanket. So the battery blanket will actually go around your battery and keep it warm, and the pad you just place under the battery on the surface where it sits, and that is going to warm up the bottom of your battery and kind of circulate up through it. And that's going to help it generate more heat, keep your battery warmer, and that's going to help it start a little bit easier. The colder it gets, the less power your battery has in order to start, and that's why you can hear a lot of lugging when it gets colder. The next thing you want to install is an oil pan heater. And what you do there is they have 2 different types, and you can either get a magnetic one, depends on what the case of your oil pan is. Most of our cars right now that we've done it on do not have magnetic oil pans, so we cannot use that one. If you can, zip tie it in place, or just, it depends on how it's configured. The other option is an adhesive oil pan heater. So what you do is you usually turn your car on, let it get a little bit warm, and then put that adhesive or put that heater on top of the pan. It'll adhere to the oil pan, and then you just put a gasket around it, and then you just plug it in. So that's going to go to a 3-way plug that will have another extension come out the front of your vehicle or the back, however you want to configure it. And that's going to, so you'll just plug that in at night or whenever you stop for the day, and that will help keep your oil pan warm, and thus your oil inside it, so that it's not a harder mixture for your car to try and start up with, which can be that can bring a lot of wear and tear to your vehicle. Most of the wear and tear that your vehicle or engine incurs is during your startup procedures. So the warmer we can get that right off, it's going to be the better for us. And the last thing that you're usually going to want to do as far as the engine goes and proponents that way is going to be your engine coolant heater, or a lot of people call it an engine block heater. And there's a few different ways you can do that depending on your engine configuration. You can use that magnetic heater again, so that is multi-purpose, or there are plugs that are specific to every vehicle out there. You can find it on Amazon or other dealerships. You can go into a AutoZone or another car care store and see if they can order the part for you, or see if they have it in stock. So you can get that, and then you just have to find the right freeze plug hole for your engine. You can use a user's manual or other guides that will show you where that is, and then you just plug it right into there. And then the other end is again going to go into your three-way plug. The last thing that's going into your three-way plug is that battery blanket. So your three-way plug will take your battery blanket, your engine coolant heater, and your oil pan heater. And so then the other end will again come out the front or rear of your vehicle, and that's how you plug it in at night or whenever you stop. So if you have a long shopping trip in Walmart or wherever you're going, it's going to be a couple hours, or if you're going to the movie theater or something, then you can plug that in, and that's going to keep most of your fluids and engine compartment a little bit warmer for when you come back out, and your startup procedure should be a lot better. Some other precautions that you're going to want to take here is you do want to look at your tires and make sure that your tread is still good and that you have the appropriate type of tires. If you have summer tires or all season, sometimes those will work. It depends on your climate, your temperature zone, and the type of snow that you're getting. If it's just going to be mostly dry powder snow, then maybe you won't have to change them. But the best thing for you to do, especially if you get that heavy wet snow, is to go out and get actual snow tires. So I'm running on mud and snow tires right now. Pretty new tires, but due to this accumulation of ice and heavier, wetter snow right now, it's having a little bit rougher issues. So we're going to go out and get just solid snow tires, but it is working right now. There's just a couple spots where it's slick. Our other vehicle does have the Blizzak tires on it, so just snow tires, and those are working way better than even my four-wheel drive with the mud and snow tires on it. So we're going to definitely switch these ones out here. Another thing you can do is in your windshield washer fluid, you can get a de-icer fluid instead of just the traditional stuff. You'd have to drain that out, or if it's low, you can start mixing it in there. Keep on using it up until it's a pretty good dilution, and what that's going to do is it's going to help you when you spray it, it helps the chemical compound helps melt the ice that's on your windshield, so you can get moving a little bit quicker. However, bad side to that is you really want to take the time to let your vehicle warm up and to get to good operating temperatures before you get going, because if you start it up immediately, even with those heaters on it, and try and get going somewhere, depending on how cold your battery is and the type of battery you have, your battery can actually explode. Or depending on your coolant and how cold that got, or your oil, that can really thicken up and cause some pretty big issues and a lot more wear and tear on your engine if it's not at its ideal viscous property, so just a little bit thinner and able to run fully throughout your engine. So those are some other precautions that we want to take. Okay, so we're going to show you some of the parts that we were talking about earlier in the intro. We have here a 25-foot extension cord, and this is what we're going to use to plug into the outlet outside when we actually get our vehicles parked. We also have these 15-foot cords, and these are good, especially if you have a long vehicle like this one. I may have to put my three-way outlet a little bit further back so that it can actually reach the extension cord on my oil pan, and the battery blanket and everything, so I may have to put that in a little bit more central location, and then I can use a shorter cord like this, which will allow me to reach out the front of the vehicle so that I can still attach one of these and run it to the house. So that's the extension cord. Again, we do have right here the 3-way outlet, so that has that 3-way plug-in. You'll notice that these have a blue and red color, and the tips are actually clear. That's important for these really cold temperatures, because the clear tip actually, the reason why it has a clear tip is a light will come on when it's actually receiving a current, which is pretty important for you to know if you're having to plug your vehicles in. So I'll let you know if it's still working. And the blue compound, they just make these blue, and that means that it's better for lower temperature resistance. And then it should also tell you on the package, like this one says, that it will go, that it is good from 221 degrees Fahrenheit, really hot, all the way down to -94. Most traditional extension cords and plugs have that orange outer coating, and they're not meant for the extreme cold. So when they get really cold and start freezing over, it gets brittle, and you will try and bend it or get it out of its compartment or whatever, and that outer coating will break off, and then you're going to have exposed wires, or it's going to break the wires inside when it happens. So it's very important that you get the right type of extension cord when you do this process, if it's going to be getting as cold as it does here. Our next item here is the magnetic heater that I was telling you about, and this does come in a few different sizes, and this is the CATS magnetic heater. You can find it on Amazon or other places as well. Some of your car care stores will carry this. So this is the smaller one. It's a 200 watt, and there is a larger one. I forget how many watts it was, but what it has is there's two magnets right here on the bottom, and that's what actually sticks to the metal or whatever is there. And then the rest of this is a heating surface, and that's what's going to warm up whatever you stick it to. But it does have to be a metal surface. And a lot of the surfaces in engines now, or the oil pan, has been aluminum, so it's hard to find a good place or something that actually needs to be warmed that still is metal at this time. So that's your magnetic heater, and you can use that for both your oil pan or different places on the engine to try and keep your coolant warm as well. So that's one option, it has multi-use. Right here we have the oil pan heater, so it's a much smaller pad. You can get larger ones. They have different sizes, and it goes off of the watts as well. So this one is a 75 watt. It's a little bit smaller. And so what you do is you just take this. Many of them have an adhesive on one side, so it would have like a white side right there, and then you would just warm up your vehicle, stick that right up to it, should adhere to it, and then you're going to put a rubber gasket all the way around the edges to make sure that it actually stays in place. So that has that plug-in too, and that's one of the items that's going to be going to your 3-way. Our next item here is an actual battery blanket. And so it has this longer cord, and it's the full-size blanket, so it just expands, and then you would wrap this around your battery as needed and just keep it there. You could put some gasket or something there just to keep it in place if you needed to, but otherwise this just kind of fits right around it. This can be easier in some applications. For our truck, we'll probably be using this one. For our other vehicle, it was the GMC Terrain. There wasn't very much room around the battery, so we went ahead and put the actual battery pad under there instead. But this is a battery blanket. So you got the other end that'll plug into your 3-way. And this is the battery pad. So this you would just slide right under your battery to take that to your other end, to your three-way, and then that just warms up your battery from underneath. The last item I have to show you here is the engine coolant heater, or the engine block heater, as some people will call it. And so how it works, so you have one end, and this has a cap for it to protect your electrical plugs from the water and whatnot. So this has your, there it goes. So this has your electricity that'll go into it, and then this piece here will connect right to that, and it fits on. So you'd have to back this off here, and then this will just fit right into there. It has two prongs, so it has to go in there just right. And then what you see here on the end is this is your heating element, and so this will actually be right into the side of your engine, and that goes into your freeze plug hole, a designated one. You can't just put it into any one, but it goes into the designated freeze plug hole. And then again, the other side goes to your three-way plug, and that's going to keep your engine coolant warm instead of freezing over and causing issues during warm-up. So that's one way of doing it. Depending on the placement, depending on your placement and your engine, just the layout and what it's made of, you can use some of these magnetic heaters for that same purpose as well. Okay, so we have the battery right here. As you can see, the top of it. If you come around the sides, you can actually see parts of the battery blanket. That's what's reflective down there, and that is going all the way around. So you can see the wording that's on the battery blanket, and we just routed it all the way around, tucked it under the wires, and it's going on all four sides now. So it's actually coming So we actually have it on this side as well. So it was big enough that we could route it on every side of the battery, and then you just take that cord, route it right down so that it'll feed all the way through the engine, missing any moving parts. We're underneath the vehicle right now, locating the oil pan. So that's what we're actually looking at up there. So what you're seeing up here is this is the top of the oil pan. Then we have the base that is back this way, but you can't see it due to the suspension. So this is all the oil pan that's going up, and it continues up. So, and we actually have a plate that is up right here, and that's what we're going to attach our magnetic heater to. So we'll grab that. It's very strong. Okay, see, we have that magnetic heater, and it's in place. And it has a very strong just have a very strong magnet on it, so that will definitely stay in place. And then as we look forward right here, I have my cord that's hanging down, so I just have to route that to my three-way. And then the other thing that we were looking at, if we look off here to the side, you will see this other cord that's dangling down, and that's the one that's coming from the actual battery heater. So you can't see it very well, but I can look up right here and just make sure that it is not running into any moving parts or anything that may harm the cord or cause any further problems. So I'll look up there and make sure that it's routed correctly, and then we'll probably put that three-way right around here and run another cord up through the front of the truck that we can actually plug in. Okay, so at this point we have our three-way switch right here, and it has two of them going through it. It has that magnetic heater for the oil pan and the battery pad heater as well. So that's what's plugged into it, and now we're finding a good configuration and placement for it. So what I'm going to do for a little bit easier access when I get parked is I'm going to take this three-way and I'm going to zip tie it to the rod up there that you can see. And then I'm going to take another 15-foot extension cord, and we're going to route that right up through there, and that's my tie-down hooks. So that has a whole perfect access to the outside, but I'm going to route the rest of that 15-foot cable and just keep it right there. That way all I have to do, I don't have to worry about forgetting my cable or anything. All I have to do is unroute it and plug it in. So we're going to work on zip tying it up to that rod right now, and then I will show you the configuration in just a little bit. Okay, so as you can see here, we do have the three-way outlet. So one of the plugs is still empty. That'll go to an engine block heater, or the engine coolant heater, when we do that step. So the rest of it, I have the excess end, which is right here, the excess end of the three-way going right over there. We do have it zip tied up already. And so the excess end is just running to the front of the tow hooks area, and then that is a 15-foot extension cord that is up there. And what we'll do is just run a zip tie or some rope, and we're going to have the excess of that 15-foot extension cord secured to the tow hook when we're not using it. So we'll just have that, and then that way I won't have to worry about forgetting my extension cord or whatnot. It'll always be right there, plugged in and just ready to go. So that's how that configuration is going to be. Now we can move on to the next step. I did have the wires running through this tow hook, as you can see. They're still back there a bit, but what we have changed is I actually just ended up zip tying. You can see the zip tie right there. So I zip tied the exterior wire, my 15-foot cable, to the tow hook, and then I ran it up through here. You can see the bottom of the radiator right there, and then there's just this nice slot on the front of the grill, and there is a mat in there. So I ran my wires up through here, and that's where they're going to sit. So now they're secured, because I already have zip ties that are securing the three-way portion of this extension cord back there, and the rest of it is now secured to this tow hook, so nobody can just run off with it. They'd have to cut it first, and then that's all fine. That right there is our final configuration for it.
DIY with Chris, giving you the tools to do it yourself.
DIY with Chris, giving you the tools to do it yourself.